Okay, great. I think we're going to have individuals kind of trickle in and trickle out. And of course, this is recorded, so our rest of our network will be able to enjoy all the information that we're going to learn here today. So just by way of introduction, Tamsi Tauya, Nitu Tamtik, Amiwasin, Ameskano, Anotes, Raylene Whitford, Nitsiga, so Nehiosco Mina, Abitawa Gusen. My name is Raylene Whitford. I'm Cree Métis. I'd just like to acknowledge the land that I'm on right now. I am greeting you from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples in Western Canada and Vancouver. It is my great pleasure to introduce Raymond and Laura to you all. I know you all in different shapes and forms, so it's great to see you as well. And yeah, maybe if we can just start with a karakai from Raymond.
Kia ora, kia ora. So yeah, I'll do the karakia today. Let us bow our head, mi noi tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai. E hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei mauri ora. Kia ora whanau.
Thank you. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping. So this is our agenda for today. Pretty straightforward. We have an hour and a half for the session. I'm sure that's going to go by very, very quickly. I'd just like to welcome, so this is, it's wonderful to have Mariah on the call with us. And I know that a number of our network from Fiji are planning to join or planning to watch afterwards, but welcome. Just a bit of a note around INDIGI-X. So INDIGI-X was started nearly a year ago with Chris Karamia, Inslee, and I. And we wanted to create it to have a platform for Indigenous professionals to connect around the globe. Ever since we did our first exchange, things have blown up in a very positive way. And yeah, I think everybody will be really excited to hear that we're going to have a new virtual exchange starting in mid-Feb. We have this series of branding workshops. We have a roadmap for exporting Indigenous fisheries in Canada to Asia, hopefully something around APEC. So just stay tuned and please stay connected to our networks. We're going to have a lot of really great things to share with you guys in the coming weeks. So house rules, everybody lives on Zoom or Teams or whatever you have these days. If you can, keep your video on. It's just so great to see faces, especially when we're in lockdown here in Canada. If you can, stay on mute for the presentation. As Indigenous values, let's engage with respect and reciprocity. And we're going to have a question period at the end of the presentation. So if you can, type your questions into the chat box or raise your hand at the end of the presentation, and we can get our team to answer them for you. So with that, I will stop my share and hand it over to Raymond and Laura.
Sure.
Thanks. We will share what. Do you want to say hi first?
Yeah, actually, I'll just do a bit of a mihi whakatau. Ko rihi te manu, tākari mai I te ata, ka awa tia, tihei mauri ora. I te tuatahi ka mihi atu ki a koe, I te rangatira, Raylene, hei whakatū whira I te kaupapa I tēnei rā, tēnā koe, Raylene. Ko waio e tu mai nei, he uri tēnei a kahununu mani o poto Porurangi. Ko Laura Cibilich tōku ho rangatira, tōku ho kai Pākehi hoki. Ko Lion Rawa Komosa Mawatama, ko Raymond Otene McKay ahau. For those of you who don't know what I just said, I just kind of was just sort of mihiing to my ancestors, just from where I'm from, and also in respect of Laura and my two boys, Lion and Moss, and just and my name Raymond Otene McKay. So I'll hand over to and also thanking Raylene as well for opening proceedings today. I'll let Laura have her bit of a me.
Yeah, ko Laura Cibilich, aho. Yeah, I'm Laura. Originally, my ancestors, like grandparents, are from Croatia and England and Ireland, but I'm born and bred in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and yeah, great to be here today. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so the brief that we were given by Raylene for INDIGI-X was building an Indigenous brand, and this is something that we are working on all the time. So we wanted to kind of showcase merging creativity with culture and doing that in a respectful way, and also just to talk to our different sort of kaupapa in terms of how we merge together that. I'm from a creative advertising background, and Laura's from a designer background as well. So
we'll get into that though.
Kia ora, bushu, tanse, bula vinaka.
Yeah, great to have, you know, a whole bunch of people from around the world, which is, you know, really cool.
Aye.
Yeah, a good thing that's come out of COVID, I suppose, is all that, those connections, and particularly Indigenous people. It's awesome. Yeah, that's us, Laura and Raymond. Little brief intro.
Yeah. So my, I guess to talk to the whakapapa, the genealogy of my trajectory in the advertising and design world is I studied a communications degree at AUT here in Aotearoa in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, and I got thrown into the deep end at an agency called Calenzo BBDO, a big global advertising agency, and then sort of from there, I worked my way around the industry and worked at a number of different Fifth Avenue agencies here in Aotearoa and also over in Australia and Sydney. And while I was doing that for about 10 years, Laura was sort of building our little agency on the side. And I made the transition over to run, how many years ago?
8 or something?
About 8 years ago.
A while now.
And sort of injected, I guess, the whakaaro and the kaupapa that I had sort of learnt from the advertising world into our little agency. So over to you.
Yeah, and so I come from a graphic design background, more in kind of boutique design studios, working for clients like Lego, Sheraton, Hotels and Resorts, Plunket, Westpac Bank, yeah, lots of variety of brands. And so my passions kind of lie in like branding and graphic design, that kind of side of it. And of course it's become a lot more digital these days, which is nice, but I also kind of love the tactility of print too. It's always nice to be able to put that into projects if we can.
Right.
That's also us.
So this was just to give you a bit of whakapapa on this project, to articulate that we were originally called Designstein, and to articulate the change from Designstein to Run, we at the time there was a popular sort of face swapping app, and so we wanted to sort of launch a campaign to tell people we're Run now, and so we did that. And as you can see on the bottom right hand corner of the slide, we put it into an award ceremony and got awarded for it, which was quite funny. But it was our kind of like sort of letting the industry know that we're here, and from an Indigenous perspective, it was quite new at the time, because there's actually not that many in the advertising and design space, particularly from a creativity point of view. And so that's the one image that a lot of people are gonna sort of like, hey, we saw your image on your website.
It's a bit weird.
It's pretty ugly.
But yeah, using creativity, I guess, is what this talks about. Using creativity to just catch people's attention and
yeah, absolutely.
Different. Cool.
Just a little bit of a statement around creativity. So we're ideas people, and we encourage and embrace thinking differently to come up with the best solutions. We're passionate about using creativity to solve problems, and we definitely believe in the proven link between creativity and commercial success. And just to talk to that a little bit is just, I guess when you're thinking about creativity in the advertising world, it's just that one thing that you pull out in the vernacular of what people know and twist it, and then put that out to the people and see the change in behavior and how they interact with that that piece of work that you've put out there. And it is a proven link between the commercial success of certain brands who employ creativity within their brands, and you see it with the big brands, and you can see and how that kind of works.
Yeah,
so,
there's been studies on it and everything, and show that yeah, it does, you know, get the results. It's not just pretty pictures or a nice story.
Exactly, and I guess a little bit about this presentation is that I guess it's having merging the Indigenous lens along with that commercial sort of lens as well, and becomes a pretty powerful tool for us and our clients. So
yeah, and so we thought today, in regards to creativity, we show you some examples of our work and kind of talk to them using some key points. Yeah,
so we're going to have a point, and then we'll show the case study, and it's just we just wanted to have a cordial with you all, and I'm sure you'll all have some questions hopefully at the end.
yeah.
And we can get into that and delve into that too. So one of the points that I guess we sort of stuck in our mind was don't stick to the mainstream way of doing things. Use your Indigenous lens to approach problem solving. We're all pretty used to that here back in Aotearoa in terms of problem solving. I see it across you know, the different rohe and different iwi around the country. They've all got ways to solve certain problems, and I guess me taking that little bit of knowledge and applying it to certain projects. This one was for the FAO of the United Nations, and this was a biodiversity project in the Hivalu Forest up in Niue. And I guess to talk to that, you know, first instance of hearing this project, we were just thinking about what's happened in all the other countries and how people have approached the same type of project in those countries, and we wanted to do it a little bit different.
Yeah, so just a bit of background on it as well. The Hivalu Forest covers about a quarter of the country of Niue, which is a Pacific island, beautiful Pacific island, and we've done a bit of work for them in the past. And yeah, they kind of, the UN kind of declared it as a protected area. There's different types of conservation zones, so that people can still live in and own the land within there, and cultivate the crops and live from the land and things like that. But it was about this project was about educating the people of Niue and tourists as well.
Yeah, so to talk to that point, it was, I guess, one of our biggest projects working with another Indigenous population. So there was a bit of, it was about a 6-month project. So we did our engagement with the chiefs and the elders of the villages on the island of Niue for that specific part of the island. And I guess, you know, hearing certain ways to be in the forest was obviously important. So, you know, it's obvious to make those engagements and have those cups of teas and you know, do all of that before we even think about the project itself, because you just put your own sort of, we don't want to put our own sort of, you know, thinking on top of that when we hadn't even talked to the people of the land. So that was... We
met with like the village councils.
Yeah, the different environment sector in terms of the departments up there. There's a lot of people involved in this process. So
yeah, and I guess going back to our point of not kind of sticking to the mainstream, here we kind of wanted to use stuff directly from the forest. So the leaf prints there, we use them as kind of elements throughout, and they're, you know, prints directly taken from the forest. When we went on a research trip, we found some old signage from around the area and kind of used that to form its own typeface that we used on everything. And the illustrations there, we commissioned, it was really important for us to commission Indigenous Niuean to do the illustrations.
Yeah, because I guess, you know, like if you think about it, like it took a little bit longer and it was a little bit more expensive, but we were like, well, you could just illustrate the stuff here in Aotearoa and you'd be kapai and it would look great, but we wouldn't be able to pick up on that nuance of the people. And there was this one, there was one of these illustrations that the young illustrator, the young artist had done for us, and it was a can of corned beef. but it wasn't spelled properly on the actual can. So when he illustrated it, what did it say? It said corned beef.
Corned beef.
Corned beef instead of corned beef. So that was the funny, like, little nuance we left it in the project. And it was,
but yeah, things like that. You could just say, can you draw liku being cooked? And, you know, to a New Zealander, we wouldn't have a clue about that.
Yeah.
But he would just be like, yep, this is how it's cooked. It's cooked this way, you boil it up and you have it with corned beef.
It's one of the plants in the project, because it was all about the flora and fauna, and we had land care come up and do the scientific part to that project.
Yeah.
And so
it's the kind of Indigenous and local knowledge that that made it really special.
Yeah. Talking to the again, going back to that that idea of sort of, staying away from the mainstream way of doing things. In my mind, I've lived in the Solomons before. I lived there for 2 years, and you see it all over the place. And there's like big, massive signs, like the size of like a billboard in the forest, and you're like, what? It just doesn't look right, and it doesn't sort of melt into the environment, and it just looks horrible, actually. And so we're thinking of ways we could actually do it where it was a bit softer in the environment. It had to be done, but it was a bit softer in the environment. So we just were like, well, why don't we just do natural shapes, natural, and every single sign that we did was actually a shape, like every single sign was different. So we never did one formulaic sign.
Yeah, they're all really fluid shapes. Just so they live with the forest rather than, stick out like a sore thumb in a big square or something.
Yeah, and also just like engagement with some of the locals, like in the environment sector, they had ideas that they wanted to get across as well. So one of them just said, hey, why don't we use some of the kawhika log, which was one of the trees over there that they had in storage, and use those and tidy those up and actually attach them to the signage and put those in the forest, as opposed to just, pine, like with Pinus radiata, send that over from Auckland and just put that into their forest.
Yeah, so not sticking to your mainstream standard signage pole that you'd used over here, perhaps.
Yeah.
The signage poles that everything is on in the forest came directly from the forest as well. So it's from one of the people's land, and they offered to like strip them down for us, these beautiful logs. But they do have plenty of them. It's not like they're endangered.
Those ones weren't endangered. So.
And so we put the signage on those, and I think it's just a lovely authenticness, and they really just live beautifully in the forest. Yeah.
So just to talk to that a little bit of kaupapa around being in the forest, this was, I guess, wayfinding material of all the different flora and fauna and different animals within the forest. And then that basically correlated with different bits of collateral that were made. So pamphlets in the Niue Tourism Office, and also at the airport. We did a digital touch screen, which correlated with the actual journey you took through the forest. So you could see it before you actually went out into the forest. And also the people that helped us install it were locals as well. And it was funny because our developer who did all the digital stuff, he came out and no one's above anything. So we just literally, all of us went into the bush and dug. It was like 60 holes. And if you know the geography of Niue, it's literally about, like 10 centimeters of dirt, and the rest is basically coral.
Yeah.
So we had to smash holes in the ground to put our kawhika logs in the ground. And so through that process, having the locals with us, there was all of these little things that,
it's just that Indigenous knowledge
of
how to work in that place,
in that world. And so doing things differently, rather than taking big plastic bottles of water out with us, we literally just drank coconuts, because one of the boys would just climb a tree, get us the coconuts, and we'd actually use the coconut shell to get scrape up the coral out of the holes that we were digging. So all those little things, they just added to the whole experience itself. Zig, while everyone else is zagging. It's probably heard this term before, but I truly believe in it. And I think it stems from how I've been as I've grown up. So whenever a group of people are doing the same activity, there is really, and what I've noticed, is really anyone doing something different to stand out, because the propensity is there to not stand out. And so I kind of look at everything in a way where, well, you should stand out, because there's something special about you or what you produce, or your kaupapa. So this one, this case study is connected to Visit Ruapehu. And this was a campaign we had done looking at launching a tourism campaign coming out of lockdown.
Yeah.
And we just kind of knew everyone was going to go down the, because we'd been in such a cooped up state, everyone was pretty emotional. So we knew that everyone was going to come up with these different emotional campaigns, and we just didn't want to do that because we realized that none of them would stand out, and we wanted to stand out because we were actually the lowest funded RTO in the country.
Yeah, so we were kind of working on concepts during the New Zealand lockdown in Aotearoa, and yeah, we knew when everyone kind of came out of that, when we could travel, they'd be bombarded with, come here, come here, come here, and all the places wanting to promote themselves, and people would want to travel as well, get out and support the local tourism economy. Yeah, so we kind of jumped on board a popular.
Well, everyone was on Zooms like we're doing right now, so everyone was very familiar with that sort of, that state. And so we knew that was in the vernacular. Everyone knew what a Zoom hui was, a Zui, whatever you want to call it. And so we basically just used that as our the startings of our concept. And we'll just quickly play you the ad.
Yeah. Okay. Let us know if you can't hear it as well. Here it comes.
Hello. Did you guys see that? Cool.
Cool. And hear it.
So just to talk to that, I guess what we were seeing was drone shots of mountains and rivers and lakes and oceans and everything like that with happy, smiley people. Now, being someone from Aotearoa and everyone here knows that. And so we were thinking, well, that's not different. You could slap anyone else's logo on the back end of any of those videos and you wouldn't even know which one is who. And so that's why we didn't want to follow the same thing. And that's why we were zigging while everyone else was zagging. And so that campaign itself, if we take you through the campaign itself, so yeah, we all know what that looks like. They're doing it right now. So as you can expect, I'm expecting the camera to zoom out for all of us, and you're in Fiji, and you're in somewhere over wherever you want to be. And so that was the trick that we and the little sort of hook that we used to zig while everyone else was zagging.
Yeah, just to capture their attention. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Going against the grain. I find this is quite a common thing in how I kind of approach and how we approach here with the team. And everyone says they do this in agency world, but I'm not too sure where that comes from. But I know mine comes from a real background of just like questioning everything. And so when everyone is telling you to do something because they think it's good, it's normally that's a sign for us to not listen and go against that grain. And so we were working with Auckland Council on this project, and they had been doing a little bit of mahi, a little bit of work before we actually got involved. And a lot of the kōrero was around a kaupapa they were doing for Pride Festival. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to create a place that was a place where people could gather and to enjoy the festival itself. It was a month-long, occasion, and they needed this home of the Pride Festival. And so the kōrero we were hearing was, we want to get you involved, but this is the idea we want to do, and we want to put like decals all over this building, and we think that we're really engaging with whoever's in that space. And we were just thinking, how is that engaging? Like, how are you actually engaging with people that are, just going about their daily life? They might be working, they might be sitting there enjoying their lunch. And we just had to keep on asking those questions. So we were butting heads a little bit, and we were like, okay, so we want to go against that grain. So we said to them, look, we're not so sure about the idea of just putting some decals on and saying this is the home of pride. So we were like, well, we've got an idea. We're going to present one idea. We don't normally present just one. But this time we were so
excited about this.
Excited about this one idea that we were presenting. And if they didn't like it, Kapai will split, we'll go separate ways. So we presented this idea of being able to engage people in a space where they have the control and not be sort of talked to at or talked down to or whatever. It was like allowing them to enter that conversation. So it was reciprocal. Yeah. And so we built
so basically we put big lights in the windows of the building and made an interactive web app that you could use on your phone and color in pictures. There we go. You select the color in the images and send it directly to the windows and see it animate. Yeah.
So that there was the trick of being able to have the people in that space engage with it themselves. Yeah, we might as well.
We'll show a quick video on it. I might skip the first bit of it. There we go. Okay.
That was cool.
Just a video of how it all came together.
So as you can see, we weren't telling anyone to do anything. Everyone was just engaging at their own pace or whatever. And you could actually reach it from overseas as well. So we opened it up to everybody to be able to just send something to the thing and just let it do its thing.
Yeah. We wanted everyone to be able to, put their own creative spin on it and ideally draw whatever they liked, which we could have easily done.
That was the initial thought was, hey, let's just let everyone kind of do whatever they want to do and draw whatever they want to draw. But then we thought, some people are a little bit naughty and they'll do some naughty things. So we the
client said no to that one.
We quickly sort of brought the project in a wee bit, which was cool. And we just created sort of pre-composed illustrations and we got to that point.
And we were really lucky that one was out in February last year. So just before the lockdown, really lucky to get it out and went on to win awards with it, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To support that whānau. So, another point we really do think about in terms of single-minded propositions for anything. Could be a brand, it could be for a business, is finding your unique. I think you might have heard that kind of talk before, but don't settle for the obvious. You may be similar to others, but everything and everyone is unique. So celebrate that. And we kind of feel like every single business has its own whakapapa and it has its own unique, expressive voice. And so to tie that kaupapa there back into Niue tourism, a little bit of background on Niue tourism. We pitched for the business 6 years ago, and we were up against a couple of bigger agencies. and we just sort of jumped into our Indigenous sort of lens and how we presented things, and it was really cool to see them look at us like they're looking at the big agencies, because what they were really looking at was us as people. And they were moving past the fact that we didn't have a, like a fancy bar in our agency, and they were moving past the fact that we didn't have TVs all over the wall showing all our work and things like that. What they were looking for was the kōrero, and also the reciprocity and how we work together, because that's not an easy thing to do, and we see that all the time across many projects that we've seen go ahead. And that was just normal for us, because we understand how things work in that sense.
Yeah.
And so obviously we won that business, and very thankful, because we got to work with the tourism office in Niue for 5 years.
I guess we got to sell in our uniqueness. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So talking to that kaupapa of Niue Tourism, we knew they had a uniqueness. It probably wasn't articulated as well as it could be. And now, for those of you know what the place Niue, it's very rocky. They have beautiful coves, but they're completely different to, say, Samoa, Tonga, Fiji. Your typical Hollywood cinematic Pacific island. They are a raised coral atoll. They're huge. It's a huge raised coral. I think it's the biggest in the world.
yeah, one of the biggest.
Raised coral atolls in the world. So that was really important for us to acknowledge. Yes, it is a rock, but they also have beaches as well, and that's what wasn't coming across. And so we were like, "Well, you guys are unique because of this rock," and they were called the Rock of Polynesia, but it wasn't a good strategic positioning on their behalf.
People didn't know they had beaches.
People didn't know.
You can just walk into the water like this rather than jumping off cliffs or something like that.
Exactly. So we asked all those questions, like really dumb questions, and we find ask dumb questions are good. We said, "Oh, how do we get our children into the water?" And they were like, "Oh, you just walk into the water." And we were like, "Okay, well, I've never seen a beach before. All I've seen is people jumping off rocks." So if you went and did a search before we came on board, it was literally only rocks were there. And we're like, "Okay, cool, kapai."
Yeah.
So we went up to the island, and then we discovered that they had all these amazing coves, like 30-meter long coves. No one was there. They have a population of around, and this varies, between 1,200 and 1,600 people. And so if you think of the size of, the island itself, it's 5 times the size of Rarotonga if you put all the islands together. So it's massive. It's a 2.5-hour drive around the outside edge of the island. And so when you think of having 1,600 people on the island, there's nobody there. So
and yeah, all the other kind of Pacific islands, it felt like they were all in terms of a tourism point of view, advertising at you by flashing up every single thing you could do in the islands, the long beaches, the fire dancing, the everything. And we wanted to kind of go against that and just find the uniqueness in Niue. And that's almost like being there, and just when you get there, you just kind of are still, slow down. It's definitely island time, and it's really lovely and relaxing, and wanted to kind of capture that.
And how we found that as well was obviously experience the island, and we kind of feel like I think you need to take that time to understand a place as well before you can even talk about it. So we took, we were up there for about 10 days. We stayed up on the island for 10 days. We did our own self-tour around the island. So we took ourselves all sorts of places. Some places we shouldn't have gone because we had two little babies at the time. But we trekked ourselves.
Experienced it like tourists, which was really important.
So we trekked across the island ourselves. We did a lot of walking, and we discovered ourselves that it was a soft adventure island. There were actual beaches there. The culture, we found that the culture was very similar to Aotearoa, the people, in terms of their connection to the land. And why I say that is we saw a couple of really cool ceremonies that I'd never seen in any promotional material. And it was a ceremony they did with their waka when they walked into the water. So there was three gentlemen holding their waka, their canoes, and they all picked it up at the same time. And I saw one of them was saying he was talking, so he must have been doing some sort of karakia or something. And we found out later he was obviously meaning to you know, his ancestors, and so they all went into the water together. And that was like something I was like, man, I've never seen that in any island. Like I haven't been privy to that. And that was one thing I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Okay, we're going to take that as a unique thing, and we're going to add it to the basket of things that we're putting together.
It's not in this particular
Sorry,
presentation.
these are the audience that we're targeting. Aroha mai. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we culminated that into a brand ad that talked to, what was the line?
Real stories, real new way.
Yeah, real stories, new way.
Yeah. Do you want to play all three, or?
Nah, just one's good.
We'll just play one of them. So this is about, yeah, slowing down and the feeling you get with some activities woven in.
We sail the world to see new things. Many places are nice, but the same. And then the winds, they carried us here. You can't compare Nui. It is plentiful, rugged, c'est beau. We stop. The world looks the other way, and everything stands still. It is all still out there. Tomorrow we embark. But right now, we are exactly where we are meant to be. Happy in a way.
So that, so talking to that campaign line, the strategic tourism line was Nowhere Like Us. And the reason why we said Nowhere Like Us was because we wanted to merge the idea of the geography and actually the people too. Because normally you'd say nowhere like Samoa or nowhere like Niue. And that, you know, you could do that, but it wasn't unique in itself. And so we merged, you know, the geography and the people, so the people of the land, and that kind of made that actually unique in itself. And so we built the campaign line off that strategy line of real stories and real Niue. And that meant that anytime they did an ad or anything like that, we actually used real people in all the ads. So a lot of our imagery is actually not as retouched as you might see a lot of tourism imagery being retouched, because there's a lot out there.
Those people are real tourists on their holiday that we.
Yeah, so everybody we shot 3 brand ads, and the people in those ads were actually like travelers to the island. There was a family who were living on the island, and there was also a couple who were from Wellington that just agreed to be in the ads with us. And so that's why we attributed the island to having this kind of real nature. There was, and if you talk even deeper into that, they don't have motorized water sports, so everything is actually quite natural. So they have, you know, you can go and you can see the spinner dolphins and the whales that come there. That's very controlled. They're actually one of the only like maybe 5 countries in the world where there's controlled viewing of dolphins, whales, aroha mai. And also a lot of their activities are just a lot of there's lots of like reef walking and things like that. So very natural proposition to the world. And so even further into that, they just did a launch of the Dark Skies Nation. So they're the first country in the world to be a Dark Skies certified nation. And you know, for a population of 1,600 people to have that mantle is pretty amazing. They got massive pickup from like NASA and National Geographic and everywhere around the world, because the first tiny little country on earth to be, you know, identified as a place where you can walk outside, and they've changed all the lighting on the island as well. It
was like a 2-year project working on the certification for it, so it's a huge thing for them.
Yeah, so that's we've completely found their unique, and that's what their uniqueness is just the fact that they're really natural, and they're, you know, there's nowhere like us, as opposed to just there's nowhere like a piece of geography. So we just merged the two.
Yeah, and that's just how the campaign rolls out, really, across everything.
Always question, very familiar with this kaupapa, and I know a lot of my whānau are, and wider whānau. So being Indigenous, we're always questioning the status quo, meaning the best solution isn't always the easiest. I'm sure this would resonate with a few of you, most of you. I guess putting it into our own context, we always kind of take it back into our industry. We were working with a organization here who is like the supporting body for the design industry called Design Assembly. And they needed to do a campaign to get people to subscribe to their memberships. They had a range of different memberships, some very expensive, all the way down to just an individual. And we just questioned, what have you been doing for the last 10 years? They were 10 years old at the time, and they had never been questioned before. So that was interesting, just to have that corridor, because that's natural. That's the natural way we operate. We're just going to question you, and then we started to have that dialogue of, oh yeah, we've done a poster and we've done a tile that we just slapped up onto the internet. We're like, really?
Let's get more creative.
Let's kind of let's try and do something a little bit different. And if it doesn't work, we can still do a poster and do a tile kapai. And so that got the creative juices flowing. And then we were like, okay, let's do something different with the idea of memberships in itself. And we were like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to reward people. Well,
yeah, this was a major one.
This was actually a really hard project because we pitched to the team. We were like, okay, so you pay $2,000 for a membership. Okay, you're going to get 2,000 rewards. So we're going to give you dollar for dollar rewards. And so they had four streams. One was 2,000, one was 380, one was 190, and one was, I don't know, was $80.
Yeah, student one.
So we actually had to write 2,000 rewards. And when you say 2,000, you go, oh, that's not that many. We'll do it in a night.
We had a workshop and we got to maybe 300 on a night or something.
With 10, 15 people writing these rewards, right?
Yeah.
So over a period of 3 weeks, nearly 4 weeks, we wrote 2,000 rewards for the tier that, that went to. And we created this campaign and it was, do you want to just play it?
Oh yeah, part of it was these little just social videos as well. Here's one of them.
So the tagline was get more being a design assembly friend. And that kind of just talked to that whole level of thing. So we just, we got them their poster. So they got their poster, kawhai, thank you, tick that box. But we just gave them that little bit more with the merging of, creativity in there as well. And deeper into our question of, just question everything. And that's just been how I've been brought up, really.
Yeah.
Just question.
There's some more posters. You can bring your dog to an event, or we'll reserve you sushi at an event and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was, let's skip past that one.
Cool.
Jump in the deep end is I live by that. So not all Indigenous people know every piece of protocol within their tribal affiliation. So bridge that gap by jumping in the deep end. And what I mean by that is I haven't been brought up on the marae or the Aotea or in the rohe of my, tribal affiliation. So I'm lacking of knowledge, and I admit that, and I'm kapai with that. And that's why we work with amazing advisors across all sorts of different knowledge. We've got te reo advisors, we've got people who do whakairo and tāmoko and all those sorts of things, which allows us to navigate our projects in a respectful way. And so what I mean by jumping in the deep end is this next piece of work that we're going to show you is a company which was called He Waka Eke Noa. An organisation where they champion supplier diversity for our Māori and Pacifica businesses here in Aotearoa. And so we took the job and we're like, yeah, this is cool. And we got introduced to Te Mete Loman, who was the consultant for the pūrākau behind the name Amotai, which means ocean swells. And going on that journey, because obviously, we don't speak te reo Māori, but we're learning. And so having jumping into, it's a scary space to jump into, because, you know, like you sit there and you listen, and that's ka pai. And I'm all good to do that because I want to learn. And so we had Matua Temete working with us across that process, and he was informing us of the pūrākau, the story around how we got to, you know, naming this organisation Amotai. And they have still kept He Waka Eke Noa as a whakatauki that they believe in for the organisation. And that whole jumping in the deep end, being uncomfortable, actually spurred us on to actually create something that was a brand identity that had a bit of a global tint, because we not only were talking to Māori, we were also talking to Pacifica, we were also talking to a mainstream audience. So we were having to hit a number of targets in terms of an identity that could speak to different audiences. And across that process, we working with the team, we'd come back with like 10 different sort of executions of brand identities, and we'd pitch them to them, and then they'd be like, okay, we're going to go take this back to the team, and we're going to roll it through the different
yeah, we ended up not having any of the story behind the visuals, and just giving them like these icons to see what the different people thought of it, and each one, you know, having different backgrounds and cultures, would have their own take on it. So some saw like a whale, some saw a sail, some saw, you know, the bow of a waka or vaka. Yeah, so it was really nice to hear all those stories come through.
Yeah, and and that's another thing as well, while we're working away with our advisors on things, we never by any means go, well, we're working with our advisors, we must be right. You know, we never have that kind of feeling of, you know, we're right, you're wrong, with any organisation we're working with, because we understand that, you know, one person's idea doesn't represent everybody's idea. So it was actually cool, because we get a little bit of feedback from Temete and then the team at Amotai, and it was almost just like opening your heart at that point, so we could actually hear and get everybody to the same destination on that same waka. And it was an awesome process to go through, because it was just like, this was one of our first really big brand identities that we were really excited to work on. And so just to take you through that, like Laura said, everyone had their own take on the actual identity itself, because it meant many things. That's just how we broke it down, kind of. Yeah. So we had our team, you know, we've got some Pacifica in the house as well. And so whenever I would present something, they'd be like, no, I reckon it's like this. And so there's a little bit of an internal sort of discussion and dialogue around this sort of kaupapa going on as well. So that spurred us on even further to make sure that internally we were all really happy with the direction, and then presenting that through all the different collateral.
Yeah. Cool.
Different is good. Yes, we all know that. Embrace the fact that you are different as an Indigenous person. It's those differences that are being increasingly sought after, so use this to your commercial advantage. We have seen it. So I've been in the industry for nearly, 17 years now, as a creative. And so what I saw at the beginning of my career is completely different from what I've seen right now. So in the last 4 years, I've seen an uptake of different big Fifth Avenue agencies come on board and sort of opening the hearts a little bit to understand how to, you know, work with Māori, working on projects that have a Māori kaupapa, you know, the use of kupu words, you know, throughout some of their communications, the name changes of some of the agencies. Won't go into that, but what we've seen is that, you know, obviously there's a real hunger to promote and put Indigenous culture on a pedestal. That's what I'm seeing here in Aotearoa. I'm not too sure of the environment over in Canada with our whanaunga over there, but definitely seeing the change. And so yeah, this one was for 2 degrees for their employer brand, and so it kind of just shows how employers are now kind of looking for that diversity, and that difference. And that was normal for us. So when we went into this project, like, diversity is like, it's the everyday thing for us. And I think that kind of confidence, because we went in as the wild card agency against all these bigger places that were specific employment branding agencies, and we didn't even know what that meant. So we just rolled up and we were like,
We don't know what employer branding is, but
we know how to
talk
communicate
to people.
And we know that, we know how to talk to a diverse group of people, just with our experience and obviously our commercial experience as well. But they just like that approach, and they brought us on board to work on this kaupapa, so it was cool. And I guess that reflected in the work that we actually created as well. Should we just show that?
Yeah, we'll show it.
2 Degrees started with a simple idea. Disrupt the telco market, fight for fair, and do things differently. And to do that, you need different people with different skills and different passions. And that means we're a different place to work. A place where working 9 to 5 is just a Dolly Parton song, and where it's okay to work from home one day, and the next, bring home to work.
Morning, Nina. Morning, Harley. Oh, hey, Kit Kat.
The whole family is welcome. Our travel policy is a little bit different. So too are our long weekends. And your birthday. Lunches? They're different. You might even learn something different. If you have different ideas you want to share, we've got this crazy way to make sure they're heard. Of course, we do all those same things as well, but we do our best to do those different too. And behind everything we do, you'll find our values. Literally, they're on the wall. So if you're looking for a change, for something different, we're looking for you.
So I guess we employed a few little sort of techniques in selling in this idea as well, because when you look at employment branding, so I'm going to use this as an example, it's normally just like a 9-minute video of people going, I really like working at 2 Degrees, and it's really cool and it's really diverse. And it's just like, is it really, when you do it for 9 minutes? And so we like, that was one point that we had to change as well. We were like, well, let's try and launch this whole kaupapa in a different way too. And we noticed there's a few companies around the world doing that sort of employment branding, getting people to work for their companies. So that was just another little thing that we used as well, was again going against the grain. And
they're all just real people that work in 2 Degrees. So.
Yeah, they were thinking of doing like getting actresses and actors to talk about this sort of thing. And that was very, very start conversations, and then we were just sort of talking around that and said, nah, we can work with people and
nice to be authentic.
See what they can, deliver. And every single person worked at 2 Degrees, which was cool.
Yeah.
Follow your roots. Your Indigenous lens is your superpower. So showcase it to the world and bring them along with you on your journey to exploring that. So, so I always just do what I do because that's what I've done my whole life, and I guess that's what I can call the superpower. A little anecdote. To start my day in the mornings, I would do the Samoan slap dance as I walked into school, and I did that because I was in the culture group and I loved the slap dance. I came second in the I don't know the Samoan name for the clown, but I was the clown at the Polyfest, and so accessing that kind of that idea of expressing culture was really big for me, and that's what I definitely think our superpower is for our kids as well. Because I look at our kids, obviously they're coming up into the world and in the world of tech and all of these really cool industries, and I want to see more Māori and Pacifica kids going into and Indigenous into the advertising and design sphere, because man, some of these kids are amazing illustrators, and they need to bring that superpower, that just different perspective of thinking.
It's something you can own that no one else can. You can't study for it, you can't become it, you just
And it's not always, exactly. And it's not always whakapapa as well. Like it is to an extent, but it's also your experience with your family and all of those things, and how our families kind of work, on that cultural scale. And I reckon, it's definitely, if you look at all of these points that we've made today, that's just part of our our Batman belt. It's the utility belt, and it's all those little things make up, I reckon, our superpowers. And so, for example, with this case study, we'll show you. This was a project we wanted to do for te reo Māori language.
Can we get with te reo Māori?
And we wanted to do something that was a little bit different in terms of the way that we expressed te reo, because obviously it's an oral language, and I guess years leading up to, we've seen other big advertising agencies and companies use this kaupapa as a way to, I guess, champion te reo and get a bit of media themselves. And so what we saw was a lot of it wasn't actually wasn't oral. It was just like posters and all of these different things that they were doing, some tech. So we did a little campaign just ourselves, during the week, and it was called Reo with Run. And we we'll just show you.
Yeah, we'll show you one of they were just made up of little clips.
So we did one every day, and we worked with Laura's kaiako at Te Wānanga o Aotearoa.
She's got great lips.
She has beautiful lips you'll see.
Yeah. And we're a lot of us here at Run are on our Te Reo journey, myself and Raymond as well. So we wanted to, keep it simple. It doesn't get too in depth. It's just fun, capturing attention and a little bit of learning.
Yeah, we're on our journey. So.
Reo with Run. Tēnā koutou katoa. Hei whakanui te reo Māori me te wiki o te reo Māori, anei ētahi kiwaha. To celebrate the Māori language, here are some sayings. Miharo, amazing. Tauke, great. Paia, yeah.
So that was just like a proactive idea that we had in our heads. And actually Laura had that idea, and we just wanted to articulate that in a fun, colourful, positive way. And
just having fun with it, capturing attention. Imagine you're scrolling through your Facebook and you see this random lip with bright colour background. You're going to want to watch it. So yeah, and that did really well for us. That got a lot of kind of exposure and PR and all that. So yeah, just using creativity in a different way.
Yeah, and thinking about things, because what we are seeing, like I mentioned before, is a lot of the companies here in New Zealand and Aotearoa are using our culture to promote their brands. And so I'm always on LinkedIn sort of mentioning, make sure you're doing it properly, get all the right, people looking at things and that sort of thing. And but I welcome that, because like I said before as well, 20 years ago I didn't see anything. It wasn't held on a pedestal. Had that upbringing of why are you learning te reo Māori? So I studied, from 13 to 17. Why are you learning it? You won't get a job in it. No one speaks it around the world. All of that kōrero that I heard. And now we're at a stage where, man, we're hearing like all sorts everywhere and all pockets of life, it was really cool. So,
finally being celebrated.
Yeah, finally. So,
and I guess to this point as well, we do occasionally, but none of these examples show the traditional Māori patterns or anything coming in, and we just kind of want to get through our work, that creativity, and because it's cultural, we don't just have to stick a kōrero on it or something like that.
And no whakaiti to the kōrero. It's more so from a perspective of we're always trying to enhance the mana of the people that we're kind of trying to communicate with or to or whatever, and respect the fact that they like colours just like anyone else. Like it's the whakaaro behind anything we do in that Māori world is all done with respect. And like Laura said, yes, we do a lot of work that does articulate using our beautiful patterns and the pūrākau behind those patterns and all that sort of stuff as well. It's just that
it doesn't have to be that to be cultural.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We like to open it up to see what else we can think of. So
this is our last case study.
Make something for fun, for the fun of it, and as a way to validate your creativity. You have to actually execute on an idea. Who knows, it might even win an award, whatever you do.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, so I guess you know, we do, obviously we trade in ideas. That's our mahi, our work, and a lot of the times we come up with ideas that probably we put in the bottom drawer and sort of say goodbye to. But this one idea that we did come up with was an app that allowed you to release your pent-up energy. And we called it Bad Good because it allowed you to turn your bad energy into good energy. And so with this app, we approached the Auckland University to, and we worked with a really cool team there to help bring this to life. But it allowed you to use the different functionality in your phone. So as you know, with the fancy phones of the day, they now have like accelerometers and speech and obviously text. And the idea behind it was being able to actually express your the energy that's pent up into you into one of these functions. So you could actually shake your phone and it would spit out a digital reward. We'll just play a little video.
Or scream into it.
Scream into it or text into it. But it just allowed you to express yourself in those couple of ways. I guess what I'm trying to say with the make something in front of it, I definitely think experiment. That's what it is really. It's experimenting. This was an experiment, and we created it, and then we entered it into the Fast Company Innovation by Design Awards, and we won the category. And this was funny because we were up against people like Spark and Kalenzo BBDO, who did a beautiful app, Kupu, and we entered the same category last year, and we won the category, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because it's like that little one little thing for the little tiny Māori agency against the big, the giants of the world. And
it was actually developed about 3 years ago now, but it's perfect for this time. When everyone's kind of in lockdown and frustrated, you just want to do something with that energy. It's just a fun kind of novelty way of doing it.
Yeah. So like I said, it was an experiment. So make things for the fun of it too. It's not always about, making $1 off something. I think you have to express yourself. And I think, being Māori, we're definitely very expressive, shown that from a very young age. I think I wanted to be a violin player and then, a singer and all sorts. So, be expressive, experiment with things. You can take that as a lesson into taking into your business as well as, everything is an experience, especially on social media. You've got the control of being able to turn things off and then re-expressing yourself. So don't be afraid. And this was one of those instances where we just expressed ourselves, got it made, and then, produced something, which was kind of cool.
And I guess in summary, it's kind of like you just want to kind of use your Indigenous superpower and use it in a creative way. And don't be scared. I mean, kids are creative. If you ask a kid if they're creative, they'll say yes. If you ask an adult, they don't necessarily say yes. And we've all got it in us.
Yeah, I use an analogy, and I always connect it to karaoke. I say, oh, let's go to karaoke. And they all go, nah, I can't sing. But then really, they grab the mic and they're there till 5 o'clock in the morning. So most of the times, that's kind of the first thing you say is, oh, no, I can't do that. But just shake that off.
Yeah,
and just do it, and
and even I guess these lessons are not just for a brand perspective or for an agency. Use them across your organizations and even for your own personal branding too, if you're doing that as well.
Yeah, and all the old adages, break the rules. I think that's huge for us as well. Break the rules, man. There's no rules. Where's the rules? Just see ya. Go past that and do it with respect, obviously, but there should be no rules in terms of achieving things. And that's us. Ngā mihi.
Yeah, thanks. We'll stop sharing now. Cool.
Wow, thanks guys. That was awesome. I've always been a big fan of the face swap, so I'm glad that you guys had that in there.
Yeah, that was fun. At the event, we had like cutouts of people's faces like Kanye West and Kim Kardashian and stuff, and they'd like hold it up and face swap with them, which was quite cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Well, yeah, so we have about 20 minutes left. I can already see Eugene has raised his hand. Since we're such a small group, I think let's just have an informal chat and ask questions. So maybe Eugene, you want to start us off?
Yeah, all good.
Yes, Kapala, thanks for that, and thanks for your presentation. And just quickly, by way of introduction, ko Eugene Behrman Kempaho, tūmi whakarai, te Aroa River Iwi Trust, te Aroa me mā tātua, nei? So my tribal affiliations are te Aroa and mā tātua. My day job is I run a iwi environmental entity, and that's how I got involved with INDIGI-X. But my question is more about something we're doing within one of my tribes, Ngāti Kia and Ngāti Tuara. We launched a waka experience at the Rotorua lakefront, just to coincide with Whakaari, White Island and COVID. So the timing wasn't the flashest. But having said that, luckily enough, the iwi own the waka and I use my whānau as crew. So our operating costs are relatively slim. Sure. But just one quick thing, and you touched on it. I think there's a fine line between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation. And within the tourism sector, those lines get blurred pretty quick. But one of the things I found really interesting working with Rotorua Economic Development and the agencies here, who were more than giving with their time, but the message we got, Tourism New Zealand pushes the need for culturally authentic experiences. But as we worked through that in terms of promotion, we were basically told to drop back on the kupu Māori, some of the concepts we had, because the global market wouldn't understand what we're saying. So I guess my question is, how do you think a Indigenous entity can maintain a culturally authentic presence, but it is globally understandable?
Sure.
Do you sort of see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very strange, eh? Like, you know, when you're trying to position your brand as being this authentic, you know, Indigenous thing, which you are, and they're telling you to sort of not use the language of your of the culture. So first of all, I find that very ridiculous. And you know what that is? I think I'm just going to talk to this first before I answer that question, Matua. Is there's a it's basically just being scared, I reckon, from their perspective. I reckon. And you know, as we say, we're pretty brave people, right? I think so. Are you asking me this question so that you can go back to Tourism New Zealand to continue that dialogue of what you're actually going to be doing, or how that's going to be working with their kaupapa?
No, sorry. Based on some thoughts and some of the outcomes from today, I've gone past that point. Sure. And we will use our reo and we will use what we do, because being culturally authentic is a key thing. But I guess what I'm interested in is, although post-COVID there's some movement with that, the traditional tourism promotion channels have changed. The reseller market, the on-seller market, so the connectivity, and I guess you'd call it business to consumer.
Sure.
Online is getting a lot closer. So I guess why I raised that example in the context of this particular Zui is just to get some thoughts on across a global marketplace. Do you think our Indigenous values and our Indigenous wording and our Indigenous approach can actually be understood globally in a mainstream market? One of the things from INDIGI-X, which we certainly found, it didn't take too long for us to find commonalities, ways that we, Indigenous people think the same way. So that's cool. But I'm trying to sell to non-Indigenous.
To the mainstream.
So that's where I'm coming from. personally, I think that I've moved on from that, and that's cool. But I'm thinking in the context of this.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was going to say, when you've got someone who's maybe from the mainstream European Pākehā or whatever, if they're already at the point of being on your website, then I think their mind's open enough to explore further, to actually find out and be respectful of actually finding out your kaupapa. And I'm assuming, Matua, will you be having any translations of any sort on there so they can navigate their way through anything, or is it all going to be in Reo Māori?
Oh, no, look, it's this thing. I was quite surprised because I thought actually if you read it, it wouldn't be hard. You know,
Sure.
we offer a waka it's canoe experience.
Sure.
I
Right.
didn't think that was much of a leap, but the guidance that we got was actually quite different. So if you go to wakapaddlerotorua.co.nz, you can have a look, and I'm more than happy with the critique. But yeah, but it's more that thing, and I think for this, because whilst I'm quite comfortable retaining our Indigenous values, we have to produce a product that'll sell. So I was just interested in that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
no, look, I won't take up more time because I see what you've said, we're on the right path.
Yeah, no, I think you are on the right path, Matua, and be brave, and that's your authenticity and your superpower. So I wouldn't stray from that, and that's what you know. So ka pai.
Yeah, just finding the right balance there, and yeah, not while still maintaining your own values.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Do we have any other questions?
I have a question for you both. Kia ora, ko ngā tikahu rawa, ko ngā puhi o kuiwi. For those who aren't from Aotearoa, New Zealand, I'm from the north, the tip of the North Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I'm lucky to live there now too. But my question for you guys was, you said a lot about, you know, zig when everyone's zagging, and I can't even remember all the phrases, but it was basically don't go with the flow, you know, just find your own flow. But
Right.
where did you get the confidence to do so? And, you know, because you made an example, everyone will be going, no, I reckon we should put decal all over the whatever, like you said, and you no. So what guides you?
Sure. I think a lot of the way I am, and also that's been translated into the people that work with us, is the fact that I've actually had to go through those organizations, those institutions, to unlearn you know, a way to be in front of people. And that actually, so when I went into the agency world, I almost wasn't myself. So I was acting almost in those spaces. And so when I left those spaces, it was like freeing. It was like, oh yeah, I'll take my jacket off now, ka pai. So I revealed my true self, you know, and like I was able to just be confident in myself while working with our understanding and caring team, you know, and it was all of, like, you know, all of these things that we hold dear to us, manaakitanga and all of those things, that just allowed me to be myself. So that's where the confidence comes from. And as you know, our people are pretty confident when they're in their own safe context. Super confident. Hey, roll up to a marae, see those kaikorero, oh shoot. They know how to speak, hey, orators, amazing. And I sit there in awe and just go, wow, and I get goosebumps, you know. And so I guess here at Run, it's my little marae. This is a safe space for us. So that's where the confidence comes from. And yeah, so I don't know how else.
Yeah, I guess just to add that to that, we have been in the game many years, for nearly 20 years, each of us. And so it's just building that experience and that confidence, and just being brave and building the relationship with clients as well. So they're not just coming to us because we're going to say, yes, we'll do this, whatever you want. You know, part of our almost like onboarding processes, we're totally upfront and honest. And we are. So if we think it's a bad idea, we'll tell them.
But I also think
it's come up with a better one. But yeah.
I also think it's the awhi too, Sarah, in terms of, you know, how our people awhi each other. If say, for example, one of our whānau is doing a business, it's the awhi that people give to that person doing that business. And I've seen a lot of it coming out of COVID. I've seen this massive groundswell of support across different Facebook pages that have been started during this time. You know, you look at the Māori business page and there's like 30, 40,000 people on there. So that awhi just gives people the confidence, you know, when you get awhi and love, obviously you're going to be confident, eh? So those things are super important to us. Any organization like that, man, I'm on there. I'm just like kōrero with my people, and that just gives me confidence too. It's like, man, there are heaps of people like us out there doing these things. So that's where I get my confidence from. So yeah.
Well then, just on that then, may I ask one more?
Right.
Because this is a thing, and that is, have you encountered Maori not happy with what you do and have done, and how did you deal with that?
Sure. Firstly, it's funny because I don't think you can make everybody happy. So that's in my mind always as a creative. So, you know, like obviously when like I say, merging creativity with culture, we're waiting for the day where we have a kōrero to us around certain things. But I guess what we do is we approach everything with awhi, love and manaakitanga towards the kaupapa, and we try and just get as many brains on it as we can. We're doing some kaupapa with immunisation at the moment. And
working on the national influenza immunisation campaign.
Yeah, so with that kaupapa, we're talking to kaumātua here in Tāmaki. Up north, we were up in Dargaville the other day talking to the kaumātua there. So, you know, as you know, all Māori aren't the same. You know, we're all different. We have different varying levels of how we think and things like that. So I guess as long as you can talk to as many people as you can, you're going to get a bit of a confidence in the fact that you are doing something good. And again, like I say, man, you can't make everybody happy, eh? So I've been there in that creative world. So
yeah, and I suppose we are lucky enough not to have had any big backlash. We do really try to make all the tikanga correct and just and
we fumble our way through some of the protocol, but I think also people see that you're doing things with love as well, and they kind of, you know, they're more than likely just going to whakamoney you as opposed to whakaiti you. So that's kind of like where we try and approach everything just with love. Hey.
Yeah, we feel we're pretty down to earth and relaxed, and try and get that out there within our brand as well.
Sorry, I was feeling very formal with that jacket on, so I'd strip that off and anyway.
Yeah, we've got some great networks. I suppose if we have had any backlash, it might be slightly on the reo run.
Some of them,
because we didn't.
Actually, yeah.
We kept them really basic.
Yeah.
You know, started at e or u when someone were like, oh, you know, you should have.
Actually, yeah. So we got a little bit of whakaiti around that little campaign by someone. Won't mention them, but it was around the fact that, you know, why would we champion your kaupapa when it's very basic? We're like, okay, fine, we're on our journey. So
yeah.
Anyway,
it might have not been the level that they wanted.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Thought it should be.
We're not rangatira yet, so that's the journey.
Kia ora for that.
Aye.
Awesome. I think Georgina has a question. Welcome, Georgina.
Bula Vinaka and Naya Modi. How's everyone there? Thank you for the invite. I learned a lot of things in this presentation, and one thing that actually stood out for me was on the astrotourism that you've done for New Year in the dark skies. And the conversation that we're having here on language. For me, I'm from Fiji, but I'm on the north, on a tiny island where my language is actually endangered. But in terms of being an Indigenous person, sometimes the cultural or the word that I use has double meanings. And depending on the protocol and how it's used, is something that we're really sensitive about. So in terms of what I'm wanting to build up, because I have a business, a space, and I really love the creative art that you've done with the app, able to control that. But my focus and my ideas is to ensure that we are targeting niche Indigenous to learn and preserve the context around their language and culture, because sometimes there's power in just one word, and that word can actually have a whole protocol in the background. Sure. So I'd like to understand from your astrotourism perspective, with just taking a picture, like you can see in the background, I guess we both have virtual backgrounds here, but if I were to have a background that was from my island home, how would I be able to sort of market it, but at the same time preserve that image to make sure that there's a trademark that this, you know, because when you go online, there's a lot of images that have been floated around and they change it up. But if I were to go into a digital agency such as yours, how do you handle those kind of edits that happen on the indigenous words that you market and sort of have that there? Because I'm not sure what the whole IP or intellectual property is done online for these kind of things, for especially indigenous businesses such as ours.
Sure, you're right. There's a lot of stuff being stolen around the world, as we've all seen before. Just before I get to your kaupapa, Nike, with the Samoan tatau, the tattoo on pants, and so all of those sorts of things are there. Obviously we have this amazing cultures across all of these Indigenous and First Nations people, and those are really, I guess, cool, to the mainstream world. And so I guess, Georgina, when you're talking about an image that you've taken, there are obviously things that you can do and put in place to make sure that you probably won't be able to have it because people can just screenshot things from their computers and all that sort of thing. But things like putting things like watermarks in place, digital watermarks, also maybe talking to an IP expert in your part of the world in Fiji, because obviously all IP legalese would be different across different zones and areas and all sorts. So maybe talking to someone in that particular space to do with hopefully the cultural space. I know we have one IP lawyer here in Aotearoa who's like specific to that kaupapa in terms of Indigenous art and all sorts of things. What was her name?
I can't remember.
Anyway, I don't mind. So talking to someone that actually has all of the info around that. Like I said, people can just pull things off their phone or take a photo of it themselves, and they can use it. And the only other thing you can do is send them a letter and cease and desist and that sort of stuff. So
yeah, I think you can waste a lot of time with legality stuff.
Yeah.
And it's more, I guess, I'd take the angle of education. Bombard them with authentic content. So get all that out there. So when they do Google it, it's your genuine identity coming through when they search for those words.
Yeah, exactly. Because you'll see pretty quickly across the internet that you'll know who the inauthentic people are because of the stories that aren't behind what they're showing.
Yeah.
So you're the leader in that space. So like Laura said, put out as much content about your kaupapa as you can, and you're building this massive, provenance behind any imagery you're creating, any stories that you're putting out there. And that means people will only really go to you because they can see the provenance, they can see the history online and that sort of thing. Do you have a website or a Facebook page or anything like that?
Sorry, I'm building it.
Okay, kapai. That's all good. And it's about, like Laura said, in terms of education, putting certain things up on your website and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much all I can answer in that space. Sorry.
Yeah, hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, I think that's great. Well, I'm just mindful of the time, everybody. Thank you for attending. And I think if I can just plug the next branding workshop. So we have Mark Rutledge from Animiki, which is one of the leading designers and creative agencies in Canada, coming to speak to us next week. And he talks a little bit about choosing iconography in a mindful way and how you can do that so as to not further stereotypes that Indigenous people have about themselves or ourselves, and that non-Indigenous people have about Indigenous people and tribes and things like that. So I think next week's going to be awesome. I encourage you all to attend. I promise I'll send out the right Zoom link. Like I said at the beginning of this, first and last time that'll ever happen. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you both for your insight and your knowledge and your good vibes. I really, it's beyond me. I haven't met most of the people in our network in person, but I feel like I know you already, and your kind of zest for what you do and your passion comes through the computer screen on the other side of the world. So thank you very much. Yeah, for our individuals who are watching the recording online, thank you. I will make sure that I post some links, and I'll also post your presentation as well, so they're able to look at the slide pack. And yeah, thank you everybody for attending.
Yeah, Modi, everybody. Thanks again for
if I can ask you to do a karakai, is it karakai? Karakia. Just to close the session in a good way.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Mi noi tātou pā. Tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai raro, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai wako. Kia tau ai te mauriti, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haume e hui e, tā iki. All right. Kia ora whānau. Nice to see you all. Good luck.
Kia ora, everybody. Ngā mihi. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Take care.